A lot of the time, we encourage people to work hard. When you are online and you watch motivational videos, everybody wants to tell you 101 rules of being successful in life and all that, and you should wake up by 12 a.m. in fact, and you should be on your grind and you should work hard and you should be intense and all that. Yes, it's easy to encourage people, but sometimes I think there's a missing link, there's a missing factor when it comes to putting in effort into things. And this missing factor I've noticed is the the subject's perception of why they should even work hard in the first place. So let me explain this. When I was in undergraduate, and I was kind of very close to medical students, and I noticed that their books were really large. There was this book that was they used to call Guyton. I think that's the author's name also. The book was really large. They read a lot of huge books. And back then I was studying geology, and our own textbooks were not necessarily as large or as plenty as those of the medical students. And even as they were not as much or as voluminous as the medical students, we tended to read less because we thought that geology, which was under the sciences, is not as prestigious as medicine and surgery. What I'm saying by this is people tend to put in effort based on their perceived value of the outcome of their desired outcome in the field of endeavor. Another situation I've noticed is in sports, in football, as it's called in Europe and Africa, and then soccer in America. When two clubs are playing, let me say FC Barcelona and let me say Wigan FC, some random club somewhere. If you want to make a bet, you bet on FC Barcelona, right? Why is it that you tend to bet on FC Barcelona? Maybe you could say, oh, it's because of their history of success in the game, in the sports. But you know that a lot of the time, both clubs are in Europe. They have the same training facilities. They have the same number of players. Why is it that you would believe that this set of players from a more preferred club who have a track record of being successful would tend to win? Now, the funny thing is, if those 11 players from FC Barcelona or the bigger team that you would rather bet your money on, stake your money on, if they took all of them and they sent them to some, let me say, Watford FC or some other club you don't think is very good, and they get the other 11 players and put in FC Barcelona or Real Madrid or Manchester City, you'll find out that those same players would win the other club, even though all players were switched, right? In other words, the perceived idea of how big something is or the advantages of something tend to encourage us to work beyond our limits or to stretch ourselves. So I do business, I do creative business, and I've noticed that if you don't put yourself together, if you don't what we call package, if you don't present yourself and your business and your office very well, clients would tend to beat down the prices of their negotiations with you. And it's not because they think that your efforts or your draftsmanship or your skill set is below par. It's just that they don't think that you're that big enough for them to give you that amount of money. In fact, in the Bible, it says that those who have will be given more, and those who don't have, even the little that they have will be taken from them. One of the times I noticed this trend was when I was in school. Now I've talked about when I was in undergraduates, but this is another undergraduate. I did 2 undergraduates for the records. And I was in the University of Benin, and then I used to have some transactions in a place they call Auchi. Now, the park of the motor park of these public transports that we used to use back then Um, the one in Auchi was really rickety. Like it was just some zinc, zinc shade with poles, and that was just the park. The same company had a branch in the main city, that's the capital city of Edo State, which is Benin City. And you notice that they made the one in Benin City, look really good. Now it's the same company, but they don't think much of the smaller town, which is Auchi, right? In other words, the effort that the management will put into something would be dependent on the outcome or the prestige of the place, the location of their business. So sometimes when even in families, you tend to come out from maybe a large family, maybe there's some form of blue blood and all that. You'll notice that there's more reason to put in efforts to sponsor the kids, to ensure that they're okay. And then even family members who tend to ensure that none of them is even lagging behind, because they feel that there's a name they need to preserve. There's an amount of clout or prestige they need to maintain in that family. But when you go to poorer families, they don't mind even letting go of one of them, and that one could be a bum on the road and all that. Even though maybe somebody in the family may be doing well to do. But because of the perceived value of that family that they come from, they would treat it either with levity or with value. So in other words, when I see motivational speakers maybe in the Western countries, or telling people to work hard, I get to imagine you may not necessarily work that hard if you were in some place that the economy was really poor. You may tend to just almost want to give up. So I think that there are lots of subtle nuances when it comes to the reason people need to work hard, or the amount of effort people need to put in, or the amount of money clients even want to pay you. All these things are based by subtle markers like how prestigious you seem to be, or what they stand to gain from putting in that effort or those resources into you. I hope I made myself sort of clear. Maybe you need to watch the video twice to get the points. But thank you.